Weekend Edition with Rajdeep Serdesai.
Hello and welcome to this Weekend Edition special. Exactly a week after the Delhi serial blast left 24 people dead. Blast that ripped through the national capital through its busiest markets. Jaipur, Ahmedabad, Bangalore, Delhi. With every blast, the terrorists seem to be getting more and more audacious and the state and civil society seemingly more and more helpless. Can we fight back against terror? Is it possible to build a national consensus on terror? We're going to try and find some constructive solutions today. Today we hope to end the blame game and find some solutions on the Weekend Edition. We have a very special panel with us. Arun Jaitley, BJP General Secretary and Member of Parliament. Also with us, Salman Khursheed, Senior Member of the Congress Party. Both of them, of course, outstanding lawyers. Also with us, Dr. Kiran, Bedi, IPS officer and Magsaysay Award winner. And Colin Gonsalves, lawyer and Executive Director of the Human Rights Law Network. Let's first try and put this issue in perspective. We have in our audience young people because we believe the Aam Aadmi is equally concerned about what happens in this fight against terror. Some of them were witnesses to those blasts in Delhi. In each segment, we'll try and tackle one issue. Let's start with issue number one at the top. Will tougher laws like POTA help us in this war against terror? Arun Jaitley, your party has taken up this issue. You believe that POTA must be revived. Do you really believe that tougher laws can help us in the fight against terror?
You see, well, let's understand the relevance of a law as far as terrorism is concerned. A law is not a substitute for securing your borders along the Pakistan border or your eastern border. A law is not a substitute for effective intelligence by the police. A law is not a substitute for effective policing. Where law comes in is only that it empowers the police by giving it special rights in relation to investigation and trial, so that you are effectively able to punish those who are responsible for these. And once you are able to punish those and punish them fast, it acts as a deterrent. If
so you accept that even if there were laws in place like POTA, terrorist attacks will continue. It happened when you were in power. There was an attack on Parliament, attack on the JNK Assembly.
But it was possible to sentence and punish the man who attacked Parliament. It was possible to punish the man who attacked Akshardham Temple. But if you don't have effective laws and you have just the normal laws, I'm afraid these are special times, very difficult times. And all over the world, including the liberal world, has shown us that you need special procedures and substantially special laws to deal with these special situations.
Salman Khursheed, respond to that. We need special laws to deal with a special situation. America hasn't had a major terrorist attack since 9/11. They've got a Patriot Act in place. Tough law, yes, but they've got a law.
Okay. They have a law, they have a tough law, and a tougher law than here. But we have special laws in this country as well. The problem is not the law. The problem is how you apply them. In America, has anybody said there has been misuse of the law in the manner in which there's been a misuse in this country? Nobody has. One. Two, the important question is, what is the sense of alienation amongst American people? There is a sense of alienation in various parts of the country, including India, in Israel. There are people, Palestinians want to go and attack because they feel that they won't get justice.
Are you saying when an Aam Aadmi is being attacked and terrorized, a defenseless child is being killed, we have to look at alienation? Is that an issue that we should look at?
If you don't look at alienation, it will happen again and again. So when you address the problem of terrorism, you address not just the policing problem, but you also address the problem of the root of terrorism. And if you don't address the root of terrorism, any amount of police and military is not going to secure you.
I don't think there is a conflict between the two. You have to have political initiatives, social initiatives to address the root. You have to have an environment which is conducive. You have to have community dialogues with people who get involved in it. But at the same time, those who commit the crime must not be given the luxury of easy bail. Those who commit the crime and are found to be guilty must be punished. At that stage, we don't consider that there will be alienation of somebody. Therefore, he's killed a half a dozen people and we let him go.
So you're saying concepts like alienation and human rights are effectively alien in a world when terrorists
I am not for a moment saying that. You must make sure that the dialogues continue. But those who commit the crime cannot be let off only on the ground that somebody else will get alienated.
Who's saying that?
Okay, then.
Who's saying that? Now, the trouble with fighting terrorism is that instead of fighting terrorism, this populist language is being used. Who wants the person who has committed a crime to be let off? Who wants that person? But what we are saying is, in the name of that person, please don't lock up thousands of people and say, no, we've got a special law, so we won't give you bail.
Okay.
That's the problem.
Okay, so is that, Kiran Bedi, you've looked at it from a policewoman's perspective. Is the problem with the law the fact that perhaps a terrorist can get bail in our system, that confessional statements before a police officer are simply not admissible at the moment? Confessions and bail are the two provisions that are seen under the present law which may cause a problem. Do you really believe it's a serious problem? Because in the UK, for example, the police can hold suspects up to 90 days, up to 42 days without a charge. In India, it's 90 days. So we do have tough laws. Should they be tougher?
This is one situation, Rajdeep, I feel, where a conference ought to have been called and police officers given a voice for the first time. I think this was a time where the Home Ministry or the powers that be should have called the Director General of Police in a closed door or open, I don't know, but asked what's going wrong. What's wrong with law? What is the inadequacy?
So in a sense, you're saying keep the politicians out.
Yes.
Please, let's deal with the police officers, right?
We should have
the
given
moment
them,
the politicians get in, that's when because they look at it as an ideological battle.
We should have given them a voice. They're not being heard. And there's just too much pent up. What's going wrong is their first-hand knowledge. I think they've never been given a voice. Somebody else is deciding for them all the time.
Isn't that the problem in a sense that before I come to Colin in a moment, but that the politicians are treating this as an ideological battle. You can't fight terror through politics. You have to fight it through a more effective policing system.
But I don't think, you see, politicians, because they're in the process of asking for votes, can be bashed for everything. But at the end of the day, they are the ones who also have an accountability in a democracy. And therefore, politicians, when they are in power, if they are weak in dealing with terrorism, they'll be thrown out the next day. So they also have accountability. But Mrs. Bedi is absolutely correct when she says, those who deal with the situation on the ground, those who are more concerned about the security considerations, that voice is a very relevant consideration, and therefore it must be factored in when you decide. I don't disagree with that.
The problem is the politicians seem to be seeing it as a majority-minority debate. If quota is imposed, the Congress will turn around and say it will end up in minority bashing. If quota is not imposed, you see it as minority appeasement. That seems to be the problem.
Well, if a Maoist is arrested, at a Pota, a Maoist can also be arrested. His religion is not relevant. He could belong to any religious community. A large number of them could be Hindus, and they would be arrested, and probably rightly so, under Pota if they go about making Naxal attacks and killing people. But at the same time, if in a particular kind of terrorism, somebody from one community gets arrested, the law doesn't become against that community. The law is still against terrorists, irrespective of
you want to respond, Colin, to that? You want to respond? Is there the human rights dimension has to take a backseat at the moment in this country, because we first need to get a debate going on the law per se?
Look, let's look at two things. First, as Mr. Jaitley says, religion is not important. I agree with that. But when you look at terrorist acts in our country, if you look at the Bombay riots 1992, 2,000 Muslims killed. Gujarat 2002, 2,000 Muslims killed. What's happening in Kandamal? Christians killed, churches burnt and so on. That's terrorism, isn't it? Bajrang Dal, BHP, that's terrorism. Do you ever hear a politician telling them, hey, we need Pota in Kandamal. Hey, we need Pota in Gujarat. You never hear that, right? So it's religion which determines who's asking for Pota and strong laws. One. Second, human rights activists also ask for strong laws at times. We ask for a communal violence bill which says any policeman engaging in a riot should be punished. Politician, punished. Minister, punished. You get it? Bring the army in. If the state police is compromised like Gujarat or Maharashtra, bring the army in. We want strong laws to control communal violence, to put these organizations as banned organizations.
But the moment it comes to a terrorist, you will come and say human rights.
Rajdeep, one last thing. Pota. Why is it that we are opposed to Pota? I'll tell you in 2 words now. Pota has one clause, and that clause says that a policeman can take your sign and you'll go in for life, you'll hang. Right? No evidence, nothing. You'll torture a man, take his sign in. That's the main thing.
Actually not true.
Confessions for a police officer.
No, hang on.
One second. You tell me, confessions.
How else do I extract a confession?
All right, now let me
Rajdeep, let me answer that.
No, let him respond.
Just for a second.
No, you've made your point.
Let me now tell you,
on
this is
confession,
factually absolutely incorrect. Confessions in ordinary law are not admissible. But there are laws where confessions are admissible. In India, under the narcotics law, confession is admissible. Under your Customs Act, statements made to a customs officer are admissible. Under your FERA and FEMA, statements made to enforcement officers are admissible. So the Supreme Court in the Tada case said, have guidelines. A, the confession should be to a police officer of the level of an SP and above. B, he should be produced before the magistrate within 24 hours. C, the magistrate will ask him, have you made the confession? Is it voluntary? Have you been tortured? If he says, yes, I have been tortured, the medical magistrate will direct a medical examination.
Sir, but
now,
yet under Tada, there was only less than 1% conviction.
Now again, again half truth. The reason why under Tada there was less conviction, because out of the 65,000 people arrested under Tada, Mr. Chiman Bhai Patel arrested 50,000 farmers under Tada. So you say they were not convicted. So if you take those figures out, but the campaign against Tada started only after the Bombay blast. The campaign against Tada didn't start when Chiman Bhai Patel misused it.
But then we come to that. The danger, the fear is that politicians will misuse the law. I think that's the fear.
Every day you have the IPC being misused in police stations. Nobody has said because the penal code can be misused, repeal the penal code and let people go scot-free.
Okay,
that's never an argument.
Why not have a videograph of any convention? Why not videograph and put that as a part?
That's one of the guidelines suggested by the court.
Why a videograph?
Rajdeep, Rajdeep.
So you can have confessions for smugglers, you can have confessions for narcotic dealers, but not for terrorists.
Okay,
but that's a terrorist-friendly argument.
Rajdeep, there is a special problem. You can have confession of terrorists, but the problem is why, when you discuss POTA, when you discuss terrorists, when you discuss terrorism, it's always concentrated on a particular kind of terrorism. Why don't we talk about the problem of Naxalites? Why don't we talk about the problem of Naxalites and POTA? Why doesn't POTA end the problem of Naxalites?
Okay, let me put a
root problem.
Okay, no, let me then put a direct question to Mr. Jaitley. Mr. Jaitley, let us assume we have a tough law coming back. Would that law apply to those who destroy churches just as much as it would destroy to those who are involved in serial blasts?
If you commit a crime, the law applicable to that crime must certainly apply. There is absolutely no dispute.
Whether it's Bajrang Dal or whether it is
anyone.
Babri Masjid.
If it is an act of terrorism as defined in the law, merely because somebody propagates this is an act of terrorism, it doesn't become an act of terrorism.
Do you see an attack on a church as an act of terrorism?
Well, according to me, in the present definition, does it say so? That's the question you have to address yourself. If somebody goes, he must be arrested under the law which applies to him. And there is a law today which applies to him.
So the bottom line, before we end this segment, I want to know, if we had a tougher law with safeguards, would you tougher law with safeguards, would you at least accept that? Suppose we tried to revise the present laws to look at certain weaknesses and brought in safeguards. Videography is given as one.
It's the need of the hour. I think we're delaying it each day.
Would you accept that as a human rights activist, that maybe we can work a dialogue of a tougher law with safeguards?
No, Rajdeep, we have the toughest laws in the world today. 90 days without a charge sheet, no other country has it, and we have it. And let me tell you about confessions. The Criminal Procedure Code for the last 50 years, confessions before a judge has been there in the code. You can take a terrorist and put him before a judge, and the judge will ask him, have you been tortured, etc., etc., etc. Is this your signature? But today, under POTA, torture a man, sign, he will hang. And that's the reason we say.
Wrong.
And 1 second.
The Constitution bench has said to the contrary. They put all the safeguards and the law had all the safeguards incorporated.
How dangerous for the nation? Forget the accused person.
No, but can we put in...
How dangerous?
I'm asking you...
Let me give a practical example. And I trust Salman's judgment on this. Mr. Rajiv Gandhi was killed by terrorists in front of 50,000 people. But for the admissibility of those confessions, not one would have been convicted in court. Please read the judgment and today tell us it's entirely based on...
Okay, I'll give you a final word, in this segment.
Let me answer that. This goes directly then to failure of investigation. If you can't investigate, rub chili in your eyes and get in confession.
This has also relevance to the anatomy of a terrorist crime. If 5 terrorists attack the police today and the police tried to arrest them, the 2 who have escaped, how would you come to know of their identity unless by the confession of that one terrorist who has been arrested? That's the anatomy of a terrorist offense.
And many forms of electronic evidence is not
dangerous that instead of having evidence and you know for certainty that the terrorist has been caught, now you are relying on the police officer's torture and signature, the terrorist roams free. A pseudo person is taken and put in jail. It is dangerous for the nation state.
Okay, fair enough.
Rely on the police officer.
I think terrorism is dangerous for us.
Okay, so we haven't...
Arresting a terrorist is the least of the dangerous.
Okay, so the bottom line is...
I
think the bottom line is we agree that we need tough laws. Some say that the laws already exist. But the bottom line also is we need safeguards when you have tough laws.
Not only tough law, we need tough processes as well.
And you need to define terrorism, because that's the problem. The difference between us is you have to define terrorism.
And so for you, terrorism, an attack on church is an act of terror. It's not just Delhi serial blast.
On a mosque, and a Delhi serial blast on a church, they're all terrorist acts.
Okay.
But you cannot pick and choose and say this is a terrorist act and that's not a terrorist act.
Okay, let's take a break then and then look at the bigger question that's also been raised somewhere in the subtext: investigation and policing. What about the police itself? Unless you reform the Indian police force, can you really win the war on terror? Much more on this special on the weekend edition.
Every individual should be alert as well, along with the government. It is not totally government's mistake. Even after the bomb blasts which were held in Bombay, even after that, for some time, citizens were alert. But after that, the life was even normal.
Once they are caught, I mean, the prosecutions or the case study should be quick. I mean, you can't wait for years together to take a conclusion on it.
See, the law should be such, it should prevent people from thinking of acts of terrorism.
Even the Muslims are against terrorism. It's not that the entire Muslim fraternity is bad. It is not at all bad. There are certain people who want to create problems and they are creating problems for the country. So the government will definitely take care of that. Only thing that there should be no opposition or anything. Everybody is backing the government and they should back at this particular juncture.
Welcome back to this weekend edition. We're trying to confront the big question confronting the nation today. Can we win the war against terror? Let's look at the second big question that is raised. How do we revamp our police machinery to fight terror? Dr. Kiran Bedi, someone once told me that we have a 21st century terrorism with a 19th century police force. How true is that?
100% true. Because none of the police reforms, none of the recommendations of any police commission commissions have ever been implemented. And one of the biggest blockade to police reforms in this country before the politician comes is the Indian bureaucracy. You want to know that? It's Indian bureaucracy. I worked with the Home Ministry. I think one of the biggest blockade are home departments themselves.
So effectively you're saying you can replace the home minister, but if you don't replace the Home Ministry, you'll get nowhere.
You will get nowhere. Do you know even Director of Police in the Home Ministry is not a police officer? Police departments, police administration policies are being made by non-policemen. They have no ground level experience at all.
And when Vasundhara Raje says after the Jaipur blast, intelligence reports have become like weather reports. Ho sakta hai blast, ho bhi sakta hai, nahi bhi ho sakta hai. Is that the nature of it? That sometimes something could happen. Have we really reduced our...
But has the media ever addressed what's coming in the way of police reforms? What's coming in the way of Supreme Court judgment implementation?
Okay, Dr. Bedi, I don't have the bureaucrats here, but I have the politicians. Let me put that to them. Mr. Jaitley, you debate POTA, you debate these other issues. I never hear the BJP debating police reform. I don't hear the Congress debating police reform. You want the Home Minister removed, but you won't ask for the Home Ministry structures to be changed.
I think there are some structures which will take time to change. And let me just
the
say...
time is running out. I think the bottom line is time is running out.
Can I tell you why? We don't have to lose time.
Secondly, there can be legitimately two views on one aspect when Mrs. Bedi mentions the Supreme Court judgment. Appointment of Director General of Police. Now, ultimately in a democracy, it's in every state the Chief Minister of the state who's most accountable for what happens in the state. If there are terrorist attacks, if there's a law and order problem, there's a communal riot, it's his responsibility or he goes out. And ultimately, if you almost take away his discretion even in appointing a police officer,
the reforms don't take that away.
No,
yes.
No, I'm just mentioning one fact. Yes. What you require in the context of terrorism, rather than go into an ideological debate of how the reforms must be carried out, they must be carried out. Today, there are two areas where you require a serious look. One, I think we need to expand the base of our intelligence, particularly which deals with insurgent organizations. You need to infiltrate
What's the second point?
The second point is the number of people who are there in the police force to investigate all this. He does a law and order duty. He's safeguarding VIPs. He's looking after traffic. He's attending court.
But we've known that.
At the same time,
I have got...
Therefore, you have to increase volume.
Mr. Jaitley, Mr. Khursheed, you have been in government both. The demand for raising the strength of Delhi police has been pending since 1991. Mumbai has 35,000 policemen for a city of more than 20 million. So these problems are well known.
I'll tell you why. No political party wants an independent, upright, honest police force for the simple reason that all the policemen will land up behind bars. They don't want. They want a police force loyal to political parties.
No,
that's what they want.
Is that... Salman Khursheed, even assuming that's a bit of an exaggeration, the fact is you come from a state in Uttar Pradesh where one police officer told me that every 6 months he's transferred. How can a police force function? And most of the terror modules are now coming from Uttar Pradesh. Because every 6 months, the top police officer has been transferred out.
Even faster.
Well,
even faster than 6 months.
I think it's a shame. And if we are responsible for it as politicians, I think it's disgraceful for this country. I'm prepared to say this anywhere, anytime. And I think the real problem is that we've never been able to make police reform a political, electoral issue. It's a sad thing, and I think that reflects on the way these people, the people of India, want to run this country. The one thing that really matters to a person in UP, one thing that matters is the police station, Tehsil and police station. Two things that really matter to them, and those are the two things that we are not prepared to reform. I think it's a shame.
So why don't you have a, are you ready to meet each other halfway on this? But you say obvious, Mr. Jaitley, since 1991.
This is not an issue of politically adversarial positions
I know,
or
but then
ideological
why don't you
positions.
come together?
If the police force is to be professionalized, and I think there are a lot of complaints we have against the police, but I don't think I am such a cynic to say that every policeman must be put behind bars. I think we are then working for anarchy. After all, it's those policemen only.
He's saying that if there were honest police officers, every politician would have
land up behind bars.
Every politician, barring the two in the studio.
Listen, if they all land behind bars, then what is Arun Jaitley and Salman Khursheed going to do about going to court and get people out?
But the bottom line is, here the two politicians are saying they agree on police reform. Where is the problem?
With the implementation of police reforms, you would have rule of law and not ruled by people who are favourites. You understand that? It would be rule of law. That's what reforms would begin.
So where is the blockade? Arun Jaitley agrees that police reform should be there. Salman Khursheed agrees there should be police reform.
Then why don't they meet and implement the judgment?
Where is the problem?
And there's a model act before
has
them.
to take place in the states.
That's part of the problem.
That's one part of the problem.
No. Government of India has union territories. Why doesn't it implement in the union territories? It can begin with Delhi itself.
Why don't we begin with Delhi? Mr. Jaitley, you could become a chief minister of Delhi one day. Salman Khursheed, why don't you have the government in Delhi for the last 10 years, implement it in Delhi?
Let's be honest. I don't think Arun Jaitley decides everything in the BJP, and I certainly don't decide everything in the Congress party. That's the problem.
Okay, so the good people are kept out, and the not so good people seem to take the decisions. But I'm going to leave the final word in this segment to Kiran Bedi as a police officer. If there was one thing that you'd like to see in terms of policing to take on terror, what would it be?
Insulate the police leadership from negative political interference, and implementation of the Supreme Court judgment would ensure that. Everything begins with the leader.
The Supreme Court judgment on police reform.
Yes, that's right.
That's not good enough at all.
Oh, that's a beginning. Sorry,
what is it?
That's a beginning.
From the human rights activist point of view, the principal areas are corruption and torture. Eliminate corruption, eliminate torture, eliminate communalism.
You appoint the right leadership, you will eliminate this.
Anti-women attitudes.
No, but what does that have to do with investigation? Here is a police force which botches up the Arushi Talwar case, and we expect them to take on terrorists.
You insulate the police leadership, you will have better leadership, and you will control corruption.
And better investigation?
Yes, certainly.
And better investigation.
Because you give a right leadership.
The
you are not giving the police leadership
force is full of criminals.
The states
you isolate them from control, and the police force will have unbridled power to terrorize society. It's not acceptable.
Final word to you, ma'am.
States are not getting the true police professional leadership. It's like the chief of the army. You compromise on the chief of the army, it goes down the drain. Okay. That's a problem.
Fair enough. I think Kiran Bedi has been very direct in this segment. As she says, you need to insulate the police leadership from the political leadership. We need a 21st century police for 21st century terrorism. Yes. Let's take a break. After that, what about the Aam Aadmi? Can the Aam Aadmi play any role in this war against terror?
We can see that this is a recent movie called Wednesday. There is one concept over there that all terrorists, one person being a terrorist, he called all the terrorists in one place and they demolished all the terrorists. So this kind of action should be taken where all terrorists should be disposed of and all that.
Security system everywhere should be improved. Like if we are standing here, there is a possibility that even here the blast can be there. I think government should make tough plans, and they should government should kill them at the first spot. If they got any terrorists, they should kill them.
Welcome back to this weekend edition special. We are trying to find solutions perhaps to this war against terror. We've discussed the law, we've discussed policing, but what about the Aam Aadmi who struck down by the terrorists? Let's get in some responses from our audience. The girl there was an eyewitness to the blast that took place in Delhi a week ago. Ma'am, what do you feel today? Angry, afraid, defenseless?
First of all, I'd like to say that the mass hysteria that I witnessed out there, it has stayed with me like even a week after the blast. And defenseless would be a very good word to say like how I feel at the moment.
You feel defenseless?
Definitely defenseless. Defenseless because the police force is not taking any action. The politicians are not taking any action. The bureaucracy is not taking any action. Let me just give you an example, sir. Recently, I traveled by the Delhi metro, to be precise, Monday. Foodstuffs are not allowed on the metro. I had food in my bag. I had a sandwich in my bag. My bag was checked. Nothing was said. I traveled by the metro after that. So I could easily have been carrying a bomb.
Let me get what the lady says. The lady says she feels defenseless. She feels, in a sense, helpless. Do you believe an armed citizenry works? There's a movie going on, Mr. Jaitley. I don't know whether you've seen it, called A Wednesday, where in the final scene, the armed army takes over the role of a terrorist, virtually, of a bomber to bump off the terrorists. Are we reaching that stage? Is that the fear?
Well, I think in the first instance, the armed army is the real victim of terror. It's the armed army who gets killed every time the terror attacks take place.
Because
and
the
therefore,
VIPs are all protected.
Because it's
the VIPs are protected and okay.
I think she may be right, but don't forget, this country has lost 2 former prime ministers to terror.
Fair enough.
And therefore, despite the fact that they were protected, therefore, there's no point creating an anti-politician bias and saying, oh, everybody is in a...
Okay, but the armed army, how do you respond to the sentiment of the armed army?
The armed army is really the victim of terror. It's they who get killed in each attack. And therefore, we must now have this feeling of helplessness in the armed army go away. And the only way it can happen is twofold. The Indian state must not be helpless. It's the government, it's our police system, it's our intelligence system, it's our borders. We have to create that sense of security. And secondly, when the non-helpless Indian state starts creating systems which are a little unpleasant, that you are checked every time you enter the metro, then please don't complain. We have to learn with those kind of systems because we are living in abnormal times today.
Fair enough. Isn't that true? Is there anybody in this audience, if you were frisked tomorrow, the girl here who was also a witness, ma'am, if you were frisked tomorrow at the airport, would you object to it? Do you believe that, would you have any problems with extra security?
I guess, yeah.
You would have problems with extra security. You don't want too much security in your life, right?
Right.
At the same time, tell me, if you were told, like in the film Wednesday, someone gave you arms and you want to arm the citizenry, are you ready for that? How many people believe that citizens should be in a sense be armed? No. Okay, that's reassuring to know that they don't want citizens to be armed.
I think I want to give them a clap for this. I want to give them a clap for this, frankly.
So is that... But at the end of the day, this picture has, in a sense, Colin Gonsalves captured the imagination, doing well. Yeah. Do you fear somewhere that there is a feeling that this helplessness is leading people to say, eye for an eye, let's get the terrorists come what may?
I can tell you how the armed army...
We don't care about human rights.
No, let me tell you how the armed army reacted to Pota. 3,200 Adivasis were taken under Pota in Jharkhand. Juveniles were taken in Punjab. A 7-year-old kid was taken in the Punjab under Pota. Workers coming home from work at night were caught by the police who said, give me ₹1,00,000, I'll put you under Pota. Tens and thousands of armed army are the victim of Pota.
I think this is propaganda, this is exaggeration. Let me put it like this.
A journalist was put in jail.
Let me suggest to you,
who opposed them
human rights in a liberal Indian democracy are very valuable. Let's look at human rights in a liberal sense, and let's not push our human rights organizations merely to become the overground face of the underground, which I'm afraid is becoming.
Okay, is there a sense of that? The young man there, do you feel that we make too much of human rights, that when it comes to a terrorist, you've got to dilute human rights?
We are looking for the cure. When we are supposed to prevent it. We are looking for the law. Why don't we have better intelligence to prevent it?
And good policing, right? We want good policing.
Yes. Dr. Bedi, yes.
Okay, right policing. No corruption in the police.
Okay, hang on, Colin. I want to get Dr. Bedi.
That's what they want.
Instead of diverting the issue right now, I want to come back to your question.
Yes.
They don't want arms, but we have to compel performance. I think, therefore, we must have a concept of citizen police, where we have bunches of citizen polices around without arms. So that they are watch and ward. We must get the cadets out. We must get the students linked with police. We must get the civil defense out to be given police responsibility.
So it's actually a partnership between the state and the citizen.
It is time we bring about a citizen police partnership, and youth must participate.
Yes, young man.
No point. Whenever these blasts happens, all the respected political parties, they play the blame game. Why it happens so?
So you're a bit tired of the blame game?
Of course.
You don't want you want a consensus.
From the common man point of view, it's quite. Every day we have...
Yes, what do you want? You want action. You don't want... Salman, Khursheed.
Why can't all political parties come together?
Okay, fair enough. Okay, Salman, Khursheed, respond to that. There's a feeling that we've reached the stage where we've heard a lot of the rhetoric. It's almost ritualistic.
Sure.
Every time there's a blast, the Home Minister comes and says it's against anti-national forces are responsible for it. Can we go beyond that and build a national consensus?
Well, I think it's important that we go beyond that. Every time we face a war, when we are attacked at the borders, we don't sit here and argue about was this right, was this wrong. We say let's first defend the country and then we'll talk about anything else.
But the younger generation feels the politicians are not doing that.
Know, but
they fear that there's a blame game going on, right?
Well, I think it's important. It's important that they say this to us. But let me just say one more thing: that we talk about pervasive presence. Let's not get to the days of Big Brother watching you. It's important to have good intelligence, but let's not have a person coming into every bedroom. Let's not have a person chasing you everywhere and you have no privacy left at all. Human rights and dignity should not be completely sacrificed at the altar of fighting terrorism. But fight terrorism because there are ways to fight terrorism available to the whole world. And we have them as well. Let's fight terrorism.
Okay, the bottom line though, the overwhelming sentiment I'm getting from the audience is that they want the politicians to stop the blame game, right? And look for solutions. So in the final segment, one last time, I'm going to try and evolve some kind of minimum consensus that we need in this battle against terror. You're watching this weekend edition special in a week when the country is recovering from the Delhi serial blast.
I think they are soft on terror because I think it's not administrated well, and they should take stricter steps to solve that problem basically.
Need to bring in more stringent laws so that they have all the capacity to go and capture and finish it there and then without going into rules and regulations of kya hoega or what will not happen.
It should be more strict laws like we had quota, or some federal agencies should deal these kind of matters.
Welcome back one final time to this weekend edition special where we're trying to look for constructive solutions in this war against terror. Can we at least evolve a minimum consensus that the Aam Aadmi is demanding? Salman, Khursheed, keeping that consensual spirit in mind, when the Gujarat Chief Minister comes and says, give me an anti-terror law on the same lines as one in Maharashtra, you say no, not possible. Why not? Why can't we have a common anti-terror law across the states? What's good for Maharashtra should be good for Gujarat.
I think we should, but let's not forget that there is a special case in Gujarat. There is a serious concern in this country about what happened in Gujarat. And then please tell me there is more terror in Gujarat today than there is in Maharashtra. That Maharashtra has been able to contain terror because of the law they have there, and Gujarat is not able to contain terror. So, please tell me that.
No, you can't make this battle Narendra Modi versus
it is not a battle but Narendra Modi versus the rest of the country. It's simply a battle of being transparent, open and accountable. I have to be accountable and Narendra Modi has to be accountable. But I think what's important is every time there's an incident like that, if Salman Khursheed picked up his phone and rang Arun Jaitley and Arun Jaitley rang me, things would be different. But we don't do that. Our parties don't allow us to do that. And I think that's...
No, that's interesting. You're saying your parties will not allow you to build this consensus, right? Be honest.
I know. I'm telling you our parties don't allow us to build the consensus. That's the problem.
I'm glad that you've been as honest as that. Arun Jaitley, would you be equally honest and say that your parties are not allowing you? No, I'm afraid. Barack Obama and a John McCain can stand on the same platform, at least on terror.
I think it's about time that all of us spoke on terror in the same voice. It's ultimately a campaign to save the country. Otherwise, the way you are headed with the kind of 170 districts under Naxalite grip, you have regions all over where the terrorists can almost strike at will. This is not the time for us to show differences on the issue. The issue is not Gujarat. You denied that law to Rajasthan. You have a problem with Gujarat. What about Rajasthan? What about Madhya Pradesh? The fact is, India today needs an anti-terror law. Since you talk of consensus, Shivraj Patil has been saying, I need a federal agency. We are willing to look at the demand for federal agency, provided the federal agency has substantive powers. It's an independent federal agency which starts investigating crimes under an anti-terror law, under a special procedure.
Sir, but the point I make is every time there's a terrorist attack, instead of blaming each other, why don't the two of you just pick up the phone? Two of you, metaphorically speaking, but two politicians of the ruling party pick up the phone and say, let's come together and give a joint appeal. I never hear joint appeals. I hear a BJP press conference and a Congress press conference.
Well, I think you as a pressman should not get so upset with press conferences. For the simple reason you'll have nothing to telecast if we didn't have press conferences.
I would telecast your joint press conference. I want to see LK Advani. I want to see LK Advani and Manmohan Singh on the same platform.
I think in a democracy and a live democracy, if there is a difference of opinion on a given issue, some occasions are also a time to remind the country that this is how we need to get prepared.
Sure, but you can do it. Okay, but you can do it on
These are not matters of social gossip between Salman, Khursheed and me.
Oh, I see. Okay.
This is where the country has to be taken into confidence.
Okay, just a minute.
Yes. I give you a totally different perspective. I'm not concerned with Congress, BJP. They are both sides of the same coin. The common people, frankly, there is despair, there is hunger, there is violence, there is torture, there is displacement, there is despair in the people. Automatically, you'll get militancy and terrorism. You want to solve the problem. It's not going to be solved by the Congress and BJP. Be benevolent to the people. Treat them with dignity. Give them a good education.
Hang on. Does that mean, is this benevolence also sometimes to mean that when there is a ban on Simi, there are groups of political leaders who say you can't ban Simi? Let's not get to the roots of terror argument. We've gone beyond the roots of terror argument now.
When there's a ban on Simi, you'll do a ban on the Bajrang Dal, Vishwa Hindu Parishad, RSS. Anyone who uses violence and terror to massacre people, you will be just in your way.
Of comparing these. Yeah. There are organizations now. This is.
Why not the Bajrang Dal?
This is called.
Why not Vishwa Hindu Parishad? Why not the RSS?
That's a separate issue for a debate. You can't. I say that you can't. But at the same time, this is what I call the overground face of the underground. That every time there is a war against terror being talked of, you deflect the issue and say something else has happened somewhere. Now here is the case. Somebody comes from Pakistan, cross-border terrorism. He has a module and starts killing people.
So are you saying there's no question of alienation? Let's not look at the alienation.
According to me,
let's go beyond roots of terror. Just look at terrorism.
Let's not alienate ourselves from this country. Let's not alienate ourselves from nationalism. Let's alienate ourselves from terrorists.
Okay, that's fair enough. Just a minute, Kiran Bedi, do you believe, as someone now out of the police force, should we be looking at all at this alienation argument, or should we now just focus that the terrorist is a terrorist? Even what Colin Gonsalves says, maybe there are roots of terror, but the time has come now to just confront the terrorists, be it Simi, be it possibly Bajrang Dal.
How serious the problem is becoming, how grave it is for the future of policing and current policing, how challenging policing has become. It's time, Mr. Advani and the Prime Minister, listen to the DGPs once, directly. And you will see, you will need something before the law, amendment of law, you need after. You just don't need the law, because if you don't have the process in the hands to implement the law, what will happen? So therefore you need something before and you need something after. I think Prime Minister and Mr. Advani both should listen to the DGPs openly, and you'll see the results.
Okay, yes. Can I just add something? The Prime Minister, Mr. Advani, should listen to the DGPs, and the DGPs should listen to these people.
Yes, sure.
I mean, that's very important.
So DGP, okay, fair enough. I think we've got a sense of where we are coming from. I've just got a minute left. I'm going to give 15 seconds to each of you. If there was one thing that we could try and come out of this program with and say, look, that's a step forward. Colin Gonsalves, I'll start with you, because some would say you're taking the most extreme position on this program as a human rights activist. Is there some way that I can get you and Mr. Jaitley to have a meeting ground? 15 seconds.
Unlikely. Because I would say that the most important thing is a radical reform of the police force, not a piecemeal reform that Kiran Bedi is suggesting, a radical reform. If you have a police force that is honest and upright, you can start making laws. Making laws like POTA and so on and giving it to a criminal force in uniform is the worst mistake that we can possibly make. And please don't give the police the right to take your confession and convict you and hang you based on your confession. That is POTA. That is the most dangerous part of it.
I have a very serious objection to this fault being called a criminal force. It's the same force which has kept the national integrity alive.
That's what the people of India
hang on. Colin Gonsalves, you've had your say.
This is not acceptable.
Kiran Bedi, respond to that. Do you believe that at the end of the day, you believe empowering the police force is going to be the ultimate solution?
Listen, they're terribly weak. They're handicapped. They're ill-resourced. They're ill-equipped. They're ill-equipped, whether it's laws or resources or technology or even the Evidence Act.
So toughen them up.
Listen to them, give them the law and the processes and the infrastructure. You'll see them delivering.
Salman, Khursheed, 15 seconds. Can I get you to do something else with the other side other than just pick up the phone?
No, I think one thing that you have to do is, in your search for the excellent order, please don't lose sight of the good. Let's get the good first and we'll get the excellent later.
Okay. Let's get one final word from you, Arun Jaitley. Is it possible to have this national consensus? Do you see a minimum consensus, or do you believe that it's become just too political?
Just two sentences. The national intent reflected in all of us must be to fight terror from a security consideration, from a social consideration and a political consideration. It should not be linked to political positionings and votes. Second, if we can trust every policeman with an AK-47 to guard all of us, we can certainly give him some legal powers also to investigate terrorism.
That's right. Okay, that's the final 2 points have come from Arun Jaitley. I think at the end of the day, we know one thing, and Ram Gopal Verma perhaps said it in his film. We can possibly ignore terrorism, but the terrorist won't ignore you. At the end of the day, you've got to be a society that's got to be ever vigilant, and you've got to be a state system that needs to be reformed to combat 21st century terrorism. Let's spare a thought today for all those hundreds who've died in the last few years, defenseless Indians, Indians like you and me, facing a force that we need to combat. Thank you all very much for joining us. Goodbye.